have been waiting months to make this video, and that's because I had to wait for all of the free agents to sign with the team and all the big trades to kind of happen and spring training to be underway. Now that we know pretty much what every single team is going to look like, let's talk about their biggest weaknesses. Now, the only thing that can kind of screw this video is if Corbin Burnes gets traded tomorrow or if Jurickson Profar goes to the Braves, because I feel like left field is the biggest issue for the Braves. I mean, aside from that, I feel like we're clear to make this video. We should be all right. We're going to start off with the American League today, and we're going to go with the Baltimore Orioles. And in my opinion, my humble little fuzzy opinion, their biggest weakness is not their roster per se, it's who constructs the roster. I have no idea what their plan was for 2023. If it was to get worse, I don't know if that's exactly going to happen, because they are going to have Gunnar Henderson for a full season. Maybe they call up Grayson Rodriguez on opening day and DL Hall. So technically they are going to be better because of guys that they have in their system. But in terms of free agency, they didn't sign anyone. They signed 0 free agents. So yeah, I have no idea what the Baltimore Orioles are doing on the GM side of things, but I would not want to be an Orioles fan simply because of that. I mean, granted, you do have Adley Rutschman, and I feel like they do have a few young pieces like Kyle Bradish, but aside from that, terrible offseason. You get an F from me. Also, we are going to be coming out with a grading every team's offseason here pretty soon, so make sure you guys stick around for that. The Boston Red Sox, I feel like most of these teams might be common sense, but the commonsensical answer for the Boston Red Sox, if we're talking about weakness, is either one, their shortstop, but I'm seeing Bobby Dahlbeck as their shortstop today in spring training, so maybe he's going to be the second coming of Trevor Story. Probably not going to happen, but for me, their biggest weakness, starting rotation health. Corey Kluber, he hasn't really been able to stay healthy. We don't know anything really about Chris Sale and the fact that even though he looks good in spring training, what does that mean going forward? He has not been able to stay healthy. Tanner Houck, I don't know what's going on with him. I really have no idea what's going on with the starting rotation in Boston. And when you factor in who is actually on the opening day roster, are they going to be healthy going forward? I have no idea. So that to me is their biggest bugaboo. The New York Yankees. All right. Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone, I hope that you're not watching because I'm about to roast you.
Sweet dollar tea from McDonald's.
Yep. If Aaron Boone came out with a special announcement tomorrow that Brian Cashman and the owner of the Yankees had made an executive decision to overrule all of the GM stuff and just say, hey, Anthony Volpe is going to be the shortstop, Oswald Peraza is going to be the second baseman, and Gleyber Torres is going to be the third baseman, I would be probably more hyped to choose the Yankees as my World Series favorites. But until Josh Donaldson and IKF are out of the spotlight, I'm not going to choose them. I just can't. So for me, pretty simple. The biggest weakness for the Yankees is not the talent. It's not them being able to spend money. They pretty much cross all those boxes off. It's Aaron Boone and his ego per se. He kind of is condescending, and the same thing for Brian Cashman. Both of those guys, they're the biggest weakness right now for the Yankees. Even though Brian Cashman, he tries his best, same with Aaron Boone, they're just kind of, they think they're smarter than everyone else, and I just hate that. I'm sorry, I don't like people like that. The Tampa Bay Rays, I can answer this very simply and very quickly, and I'm going to keep on saying this until it actually happens. The Tampa Bay Rays would be the Houston Astros if they spent money. They are so good at developing talent. I mean, Yandy Diaz and Harold Ramirez were some of the best hitters in baseball. They plucked them out of nowhere. Former Cleveland Guardians, the same thing you could say about Drew Rasmussen, even though they lost out on Willie Adames. Drew Rasmussen, he looked like a wizard out there, so if the Rays added money to their voodoo witchcraft system of finding hidden players, again, they would be the Astros. So their biggest weakness is having shallow pockets. The Toronto Blue Jays. Now, I'm going to keep it real with you guys. Some of the teams on this list, we will kind of have to nitpick because the Blue Jays, they filled in a lot of holes. But for me, considering I've seen the Blue Jays in the playoffs for quite some time, I am not a big believer in Adam Simber. Pretty much all of the issues stemming back to when they have made the playoffs have been bullpen implosions. So for me, their biggest weakness has to be that bullpen. I know they added a few guys like Eric Swanson. He is very underrated and he's going to be good in 2023, but I just don't believe in him. I'm sorry. Jordan Romano, he's very good. That's about it in terms of people I truly believe in that bullpen. So the Blue Jays offense, great. The starting rotation depth, I mean, they could go Nate Pearson as a sixth starter, Yusei as a bullpen guy. They have starting pitchers for days, so that bullpen, I guess I'm nitpicking, that's their biggest weakness. Moving on over to the AL Central, we have the Chicago White Sox, and I'm going to go ahead and just put it out there. I think that their biggest weakness is something along the lines of what we talked about with the Yankees, ego. Now, through the grapevines, you guys know I talked to a few people. I've heard through the grapevines that a lot of people think that Yoan Moncada is kind of a me guy. Now, what I'm seeing in the World Baseball Classic that is positive news, maybe him playing for a country is maybe it's kind of reminding him that, hey, baseball is a game that's bigger than just me, Yoan Moncada, so maybe I have to play for the team. And a lot of the vibes were off in 2022. I hate to bring up vibes, but that was definitely the case. Tony La Russa, he was not a good person to have as a manager. So for me, ego is definitely going to be a problem going forward, especially when you have guys like Elvis Andrus coming out publicly last year saying that the Guardians were going to crumble, and then they got smacked in the face towards the end of the season by the Guardians. So we can't be showboating and talking all that mess. Just play baseball, please. The White Sox, I actually like them. Even though I'm a Guardians fan, they're a lot of fun to watch, especially with all that talent. I mean, they're really talented. The Cleveland Guardians, I was almost tempted to use the same cop-out as I always do. We don't spend money, but they did give $16 million to Josh Bell. That is a huge piece. I am so worried about the back end of the rotation for the Guardians. I have no doubts in the world about Bieber and Mr. Tristan McKenzie. Those guys are workhorses. Those guys are dogs. No issues in the world with them. But when it comes to Zach Plesac, we saw what happened to Aaron Savali against the Yankees. I still have no idea what Terry Francona saw in the playoffs last year to say, hey, Aaron Savali, go shut out the Yankees, and then he looked like a toddler against a college LSU team. Like, it was bad, and the back end of the rotation easily is the biggest issue if we're not talking about Miles Straw. But to me, Miles Straw is going to be someone that gets replaced by Will Brennan, so I'm cool with not saying Miles Straw is their biggest weakness. It's definitely the rotation, and at that, the back end of it. The Kansas City Royals, I'm going to go with the same issue I gave the Orioles. Their general management, they might have one of the worst outfields in baseball. Now, going forward, it should be a little bit better because they are going to have guys like Gavin Cross. I do really like infielders Michael Massey and Bobby Witt Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino. So their offense is going to be young and exciting, but their outfield, it's lacking. Their rotation, it's lacking. The Hunter Dozier contract is terrible. So for me, the general management of the Royals, they got to maybe change something up, because even though the future looks bright, at the same time, I don't know if I trust in that future that has been built by these guys who kind of don't know what they're doing, even though they drafted Bobby Witt Jr., so that's cool, and I do like some of their young pitchers. I don't know, maybe I'm just nitpicking again because the Royals are good kind of on paper, they're fun, but they do have a lot of weaknesses, and I think that stems from their bad general management. The Minnesota Twins, their biggest weakness, and this is as common sense as it gets, because even if you're a casual baseball fan, you know that the Twins, they're usually pretty good until they're not, and that's because of injuries. It's normally because Byron Buxton has something happen with his knee, or Kenta Maeda is out for the rest of the year, or this and that. The Twins are very simple. They will be in the contention to win the AL Central if they can simply stay healthy. So please do that. I want 150 games from Byron Buxton almost as bad as I want to breathe. The Houston Astros, I'm going to go ahead and say it. They don't have a weakness. I can't believe I'm saying that. If I was going to give one nitpicky answer, it would probably be Martin Maldonado is back, but then again, they do have a young prospect by the name of Corey Lee, who I really like. He stunk it up last year in his debut season, but the Astros, I'm going to give it to you. You have no weaknesses. You don't. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. I still don't know why they're called the Los Angeles Angels, because that's just the Angels. Anyways, any pitcher not named Shohei Ohtani, Patrick Sandoval, and Reed Detmers, I have questions about. I know Jose Suarez looked good, but I still have some doubts. I have major doubts about Tyler Anderson. I do have some doubts about their bullpen. Pitching is going to be a big-time strong suit if we're talking about the first few dogs in that rotation. I love Ohtani. Sandoval looked disgusting. And again, I do believe in Reed Detmers. Aside from that, we've had some breakout seasons from Tyler Anderson and Jose Suarez and some other guys in that bullpen, but can they repeat it? I don't know. So for me, that's their biggest weakness, because we don't have to worry about their offense. It's going to be legit. Logan O'Hoppe, they had the worst production from a catching standpoint. They're going to be fine with Logan. That kid absolutely rakes. I'm just going to throw that out there. Logan Hoppe, he could get some Rookie of the Year votes. The Oakland Athletics, I will keep this very brief. They are owned by a man named John Fisher. That is their biggest weakness. It will stay that way until they are sold. And if you're watching this and you do end up getting sold to the Vegas area, I don't mean any of this. Please do not ban me. The Mariners, let's go with two kind of players in one. I'm going to wrap them up in a little package. I'm going to call them the lefties. So the lefties in that rotation, I'm talking about Robbie Ray and Marco Gonzalez. Robbie Ray, when he's on, disgusting. He actually is one of the filthiest starting pitchers we've ever seen. If we're talking about strikeouts per 9 to begin a career, he was really fast at getting to 1,000 strikeouts, so he is nasty. But him and Marco Gonzalez, they are prone to imploding every so often, and you can cannot have that in a 3 or 5 game, 7 game series. So they really scare me. That's their biggest weakness. The Texas Rangers. This is going to be kind of a cop-out answer, but I'm going to go with their biggest weakness is timing. On paper, they look like such a great team in 2024 and beyond once all of the young guys are up. To me, I don't feel like it's fair to judge them on their success or not in 2023, considering they're not building their team for this upcoming season. Are they going to be trying to win some games? Yeah, but in baseball, you don't have to tank to get draft picks because those draft picks aren't going to make a difference for a half decade. So the Rangers, timing is their biggest weakness because they're in the same division as the Angels and the Astros. So it's going to be tough to win 85, 95 games. So 2024 and beyond, again, it's just timing. The Atlanta Braves, I was mulling over this team because I wanted to go with the back end of the rotation, but I feel like I've used that a little bit too often in today's video. So for me, it became very evident once I actually looked at their roster construction. Eddie Rosario, a great story, but he wasn't good last year. Marcell Ozuna is a dumpster fire of a human and a baseball player over the last few years. So left field has to be the Braves' biggest weakness. And also, speaking of the Braves, I hope that Mike Soroka comes back soon and he's going to be healthy in the second half because he fixes the back end of that rotation. Is Kyle Wright going to be able to duplicate his success? Is Morton not going to be BP? I guess we'll find out. The Miami Marlins and their outfield, that has to be their biggest weakness, although I don't really like Jacob Stallings, their catcher. I am going to say that the outfield is a problem. That's simply based off the production from 2022. It was one of the worst. Actually, it was the worst in all of Major League Baseball. If we're talking about Baseball Reference rating outfielders, yeah, Miami was at the top for being the worst, not for being the best. Actually, correction, they were the second worst rated outfield in 2022. But now that Jazz Chisholm is in center field, they are going to be more productive because Jazz is a superstar offensive player. Defensively, I feel like he's going to struggle a little bit. Brian De La Cruz, maybe he has a bounce back season. Jesus Sanchez, is he their other outfielder? I don't remember the other outfielders, but for me, their depth in the outfield is a problem for sure. Because when you're talking about pitching, you got Sandy. I mean, they lost Pablo Lopez, and they're going to be A-OK with Jesus Luzardo. Yuri Perez is going to be a stud in the near future. They have Edward Cabrera, Max Myers coming back, and you also have Sixto Sanchez. They're fine, completely fine on the pitching side of things. And offensively, I think they'll be better with the resurgent season from Avisail Garcia. Hey guys, sorry for the random cut, but I recorded this video a few days ago before Edwin Diaz got hurt. So yeah, you're going to hear me talking about starting pitching health for the Mets, but just know their weakness actually is just staying healthy in general for every single pitcher. And also I'm hoping that Edwin has a speedy recovery because I already missed those trumpets. The New York Mets are one of those teams that on paper, they're kind of like the Jays. I'm going to have to nitpick. I just spit everywhere. You can tell I'm passionate about this video because I'm getting fired up and animated. But yeah, for me, I am nitpicking with the Mets. I'm going to go with starting rotation health. The same thing that we said about the Boston Red Sox, because on paper, Chris Sale, Corey Kluber, Tanner Houck, that's not a terrible 1, 2, 3. I love Chris Sale. And the same thing for the Mets. Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, absolute dogs. But now that Jose Quintana is going to be missing 3 or 4 months with a possible, I don't know if they called it a cancer, but they had a biopsy on his ribs because there wasn't a blunt force trauma, but he had a fractured rib. So they were wondering, how does that happen? So keep your prayers and thoughts with Jose Quintana that everything's okay. But because Jose Quintana is on the shelf and Carlos Carrasco has been a little bit injury prone over the last few years, and you have other guys in that rotation that sometimes get nicked up, that's my only concern with them is can they stay healthy for a full 162 game schedule. The Philadelphia Phillies, it was left-handed relievers. Now, a lot of people say you only need one big lefty like in Jose Alvarado and you'd be okay. But now that they have Gregory Soto and Matt Strahm, I can't really say the left-handed relievers. I don't know, the back end of their starting rotation. Is Ranger Suarez going to be a star like we saw in the World Series and the playoffs? Can Taijuan Walker look like Taijuan Walker in the World Baseball Classic? Again, I'm kind of nitpicking because I don't want to say Bryson Stott after he went hitless in the World Series, so I'm trying to not shred my friend. So yeah, I feel like the back end of that rotation for the Phillies, considering they're being paid a lot of money, they have to perform, and to me, that's probably their biggest weakness. Then again, now that I'm thinking about it, it's probably just defense in general, because Hoskins, Bohm, Schwarber, Castellanos, maybe defense. How about back end of the rotation in terms of performance on how much they're getting paid and defense? I don't know. I'm nitpicking here. The Washington Nationals. Their entire pitching staff, because Patrick Corbin is a thief stealing money. I'm sorry, Patrick, if you're watching this. Steven Strasburg can't stay healthy. Josiah Gray, very nice guy. I don't know how high his ceiling is. I hope that he progresses in 2023. Cade Cavalli, I think Trevor Williams is on the Nationals now. Their rotation is boring, and I'm not excited about it. That's their biggest weakness, aside from just being the Nationals. The Chicago Cubs, I don't know if I'm cheating with this, but their biggest weakness is going to be getting on base. Now, if we're talking about ceilings of players, the Cubs actually have a pretty raw roster. I'm not gonna lie. They have a lot of guys that if they pop off, they're gonna be good. I'm talking about Cody Bellinger, Trey Mancini, Seiya Suzuki. All of these guys are otherworldly talented. It's just, can they get on base consistently? Cody Bellinger strikes out a lot. Christopher Morel strikes out a lot, doesn't get on base a ton. Patrick Wisdom. So they have a lot of guys with insane potential and high ceilings, but getting on base has not been their strong suit. So I'm worried about, grounding into double plays. I'm worried about not being able to take the extra bag. For me, getting on base is the Cubs' biggest issue. That's my opinion. The Cincinnati Reds, graded as the worst team in all of baseball last year in terms of shortstop production, and then they fixed that by signing Kevin Newman. Yeah, the biggest weakness for the Reds, their farm system is insane. I do like some of their pieces in that rotation. Shortstop is their biggest weakness, and maybe just infield depth if we're not talking about Jonathan India, but maybe they have young guys like Christian Encarnacion Strand or Spencer Steer or Matt McClain. Maybe they can fill in the gaps. I don't know, but shortstop they suck at. Then again, O'Neal Cruz is on the horizon. Look out for that kid. He is so good. The bullpen for the Brewers, I'm going to give them the biggest weakness label, and that's anyone not named Devin Williams. I have no issues or questions about Devin. Dude is so nasty, playing in the WBC for Team USA. The Brewers probably going to be an easy team to talk about because I love their rotation when healthy. I really like their improved offense with William Contreras and also Jesse Winker. I think he's going to revert back to old school Jesse Winker. So the bullpen, just because, again, that's the only option left aside from general management, but they pulled off a few decent moves, so yeah, the bullpen. The Pittsburgh Pirates, as much as I despise Austin Hedges as a baseball player, I want to give it to Austin Hedges, but he does call a pretty good game from behind the dish, and that's going to be big for a starting rotation that is young and not very... Rich Hill kind of ruins the average age of the rotation because he's 95 years old, but Rich Hill, Roansy Contreras, Mitch Keller, Vince Velasquez, I think, is on the Pirates now. A bunch of just guys I don't trust yet. Rich Hill's decent. Mitch Keller and Contreras, I like their stuff, but aside from that, there's not really much writing home about the Pirates, but their biggest weakness, the starting rotation, and the same for our next team, the St. Louis Cardinals. Lots of decent guys in that rotation, but no one truly special unless you believe that Adam Wainwright is going to be a 2.7 ERA guy at the ripe age of 41, 42 years old. I do love Jack Flaherty. I mean, we know that Jack Flaherty can be one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's on top of his game and healthy, but other guys in that rotation like Jordan Montgomery, he's good. Just, I really like their bullpen. I like Helsley. I like the fact that Hicks is healthy. They have Palante or whatever his name is, Piante. They have Gallegos. So many studs in that bullpen. A lot of offensive juggernauts, so it has to be that starting rotation. The final division that we're going to talk about, the NL West, the Diamondbacks pitching, and this is an easy one because way too many questions. Is Madison Bumgarner going to be a bum? He's going to put bum in Mad Bum. Zach Gallen is a stud. No questions about him. But other young guys like Dre Jameson, I think his name is, Ryan Nelson. There was that one guy that threw a no-hitter in his first start. I don't even know if he's in the rotation anymore. He's probably a bullpen guy. But they do have Zach Davies and Merrill Kelly. Merrill Kelly's on Team USA kind of by default because no other pitcher wanted to be on the team, but pitching for the Arizona Diamondbacks. If they have a collective 3.5, 3.8 ERA as a team, the Arizona Diamondbacks might shock the world and make the playoffs. You heard it here first. Their bullpen's a little shaky as well. So their entire pitching staff, from the starting rotation to the bullpen, everyone not named Zach Gallen, they're in question. Remember how we talked about the biggest weakness for the A's is their owner, John Fisher? This is the biggest travesty of this entire list. The Rockies are still owned by Dick Montfort. He was excited to finish 500 this year. Yeah, I'm glad that's the goal. That's all you guys need to hear. They're owned by I don't want to even say it. I'm going to get in trouble. The Los Angeles Dodgers. Again, this could be a cop-out answer like we gave the Cubs and getting on base, but to me, the biggest weakness that the Dodgers have, and I actually think that it's valid, depth. They traded away a young guy in Jacob Amaya in that Miguel Rojas trade. Now, Miguel Rojas plays the same position as Jacob Amaya, but maybe you wanted to keep some guys like Jacob Amaya so you still have someone. I mean, they did get Miguel Rojas, but I don't know. Depth. I don't know. I guess it's just depth. They lost Trey Turner, Gavin Lux, unfortunately, Joey Gallo, whether you like him or not, he's a 2-time All-Star. Tyler Anderson, Andrew Heaney. Again, they lost Jacob Amaya, who I believed in as a young talent. They could have kept him and then maybe traded for someone else aside from Miguel Rojas. Yeah, depth in general. That's the biggest issue for the Dodgers. I'm reaching on that one, I think. Trent Grisham, one of the streakiest hitters in baseball. I mean, the dude was a postseason hero for the Padres, and then he went hitless, 0 for 19 in the NLCS, and that's why he has to be my biggest weakness. He could be one of the better players in baseball, or he could turn into an automatic out, and you just cannot have that in a championship series where every single out matters. He's going to make up for a little bit on the bases and with his glove out there in center field, but the Padres, they're loaded everywhere. Seth Lugo looks great. Nick Martinez is a WBC guy. Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, Tatis is back. They signed Xander. It's got to be Trent Grisham. He is the weakest link by far. And then the San Francisco Giants, is this weird to say? Again, if I'm reaching, please let me know. The Giants' biggest weakness right now is the fact that they don't have a true superstar. I think that Jock Peterson is fun to watch, but as an overall baseball player, he's not my favorite because he's lacking on the defensive side of things, in my opinion. I feel like athletically on the bases, he's not going to, go from first to third or first to home every chance he gets. Now, to be fair, it's not like they didn't try to go get a superstar. They were in the running for Aaron Judge. He was supposed to get a lot of money from the Giants, and then they said, okay, we're not going to have that happen. Arson's going back to the Yankees. Let's go grab Carlos Correa. And it was pretty much done on paper. It was done, actually, until a failed physical. He goes to the Mets, fails the physical there. Now he's back on the Twins because they've been around Carlos Correa. They trust him. So it's not like they didn't try to have a true face of the franchise. It's not Mike Yastrzemski. It's not Michael Conforto. I mean, Michael's good, but he's not a true superstar. So if anything, again, I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. I like their rotation, actually. I feel like it can be sneaky good, even though they have some average names like Sean Manaea and Ross Stripling and other guys. Logan Webb is really good. So for me, lacking a true superstar, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe they're just going to be a team that plays for each other. But for me, they don't have a real identity aside from Gabe Kapler being kind of cringe and motivational at the same time. So if you're a Giants fan, let me know. What's your biggest weakness? Actually, I just thought of one. If Brandon Crawford is as bad as he was last year, dude's got to go. I'm sorry. Well, everyone, that does it for today's video. I had a ton of fun making this. I love talking about teams more in depth and kind of trying to brainstorm what's going to make them good or not going into the next season. So if you want to see more videos like this, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.